Hola amigos de toda Latinoamérica. Es un gusto para el Segal Institute tener a dos grandes líderes del tenis internacional, del tenis mundial, además de ser dos grandes amigos. Con nosotros está el doctor Mark Kovacs y junto con él también otro gran líder del tenis internacional, Mike Barrell. Hi Mike, hi Mark. Thank you to be with us in this presentation, live presentation. Voy a hacer la introducción de cada uno de ellos, bien, con respecto a su perfil y a su historial. I'm going to introduce you each one in Spanish first, okay? Mike Barrell es una personalidad internacional, es un líder del desarrollo del tenis con más de 30 años de experiencia. En los últimos 15 años ha estado trabajando con todo lo que tiene que ver con menores de 10 años. Desarrolló el manual de la ITF de menores de 10, que es un libro muy conocido que todos ustedes tienen. Además, es el CEO de Evolve9, que es una empresa dedicada al desarrollo del tenis y a contribuir al crecimiento de los clubes. Actualmente tiene más de 50 clubes en el mundo, en diferentes países. Mike también es un disertante constante en congresos internacionales y en congresos nacionales. Thank you, Mike, to be with us. Okay. El doctor Mark Kovacs, como comentaba, es un líder de las ciencias del deporte, es un especialista en alto rendimiento, ¿sí? Y fundamentalmente tiene muchísima experiencia como fisiólogo con gran cantidad de jugadores, ¿sí? Es profesor, es speaker, ha producido muchísimos libros, bien, de los cuales son lectura obligada para todos los entrenadores internacionales. También ha trabajado con muchos jugadores top de primera línea como John Isner, Tiafoe, Madison Keys, Sloane Stephens, Reilly Opelka y muchos otros. Él es el CEO y dirige el Kovacs Institute, que es un centro especializado en Sports Science. Así que, welcome to be with us, Mike, Mark. Thank you to be in this live chat for all South America. We have more than 30 people around, just starting our conversation. Let's do our first question for Mike. Mike, today is it's a great opportunity because when you have like a pandemic like this, we have time to increase the number and the quality of our programs, you know. And you were working a lot with your evolution programs to develop different aspects of the junior program for school, which is the main topic of our presentation. Which are the opportunities in this time from your point of view?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking me to come on. I think that the challenges we have, as much as we're all losing money and we're in a challenging situation, it gets us off autopilot. So it gives us time to actually start learning to think about what we're doing and how we drive and how we go forwards. And you know, most of the team sports are going to suffer more than we are because obviously tennis has the opportunity to sell itself with distancing and the fact how structured a tennis lesson is. So I think there's a number of things. Right now, everybody's listening. Like there's a chance to communicate with more people, more coaches, more players. But yeah, your messaging has to be ready. It has to be ready to go. And I think we have to be pushing hard and building a community with tennis, not just telling people about it. So there's lots of opportunities right now if you have a good program, but I think it also is more of an opportunity for us to reflect and look and say, well, what is our program and what should we be provided?
Very good. Very good concept, Mike. Mark, you did a lot of programs and then also you did a lot of books about sports science. Mark, yes. And I think sports science have to be more involved when you are developing juniors at early ages, you know, in the school programs, and because the people think that the sports science involvement is more like when you are a high performance tennis player. From our case, we believe you have to start very early. How sports science could help the school programs around the world?
Yeah, no, first off, thanks for doing these. It's always good to share information and be on with Mike and yourself. I think your question's a good one. Too many people, I think, have complicated the concept of sports science and tennis science specifically. It's not about complicating simple. It's about explaining how to do things fundamentally correctly and what is going to give you the best chance of success based on research and based on data. So that's applicable to a beginner, that's applicable to a senior player, that's applicable to a professional. So using data to make data-driven decisions is just going to save you a lot of time from trial and error. And that's the biggest aspect of good sports science. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad sports science as well, where people overcomplicate very simple concepts and confuse everyone because they use big words, they use complex concepts of teaching or learning, which it's really not that hard. Hitting a tennis ball is not that complicated. Getting good at it and becoming a very high level player is difficult because of the steps it takes. But too many people complicate it at the early levels, and that's where the true sports science information can help, because it should simplify, not complicate things.
Let me re-ask about this. Which kind of science you believe that from the beginning the tennis coach are able to put on place on a tennis school, like biomechanics, like physical tests? Which kind of things you
No, it's a great point, because there's motor learning. Kids learn a certain way, understanding their patterns of learning, what's appropriate and personalized for them based on their learning styles is huge. And Mike's one of the best in the world at this, of understanding this, and that's a big piece of it. The biomechanics of technical stroke production is very simple. There's fundamentals which every player has to do correctly, and then there's style. Too many coaches focus on style, not enough focus on true fundamentals. Every player hits the ball basically the same way. As much as there's a lot of individuality to it and style, basic fundamentals at the early stages is paramount to having a competent player. Then you've got the physical side, which is basic skills they need to be able to do. Fundamental movement skills, whether it's tennis or any other sport, that's step one. Can they jump? Can they throw? Can they land? Can they catch? Can they change direction effectively? That's all basic athleticism. And then as they start progressing down the path of being a competent tennis player, then they have to start becoming more tennis specific in what they can do. Can they move deep to a backhand? Can they move short to a forehand? Can they hit a serve +1 with the right footwork patterns? That's all sort of step 2 or 3 in a player's physical development. So all of these are basic sports science concepts, but how you teach them is very varied, as you know, around the world. And some coaches do it great and they understand how to make it very simple and easy to learn, and others overcomplicate it, unfortunately, or they don't understand it well enough. So, that's where the education side comes in and is so important.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's kind of like, for me, it's kind of like baking a cake. It's like you use very simple ingredients in the right proportions, in the right way at the right time, and that's how you get a result. Good people that do that, they don't throw every ingredient in the pan. They just go, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do the simple things, do it really well in the right proportions at the right time in a kid's development, and then they get the results. And I think a lot of people think it's throwing everything in the pot, and it's really not. It's about keeping on the road, keeping simple recipes, and doing things well over and over and over again. And that comes down to really understanding kids. And if you think about our education, and you're doing a lot with Segal Institute now with everything you're trying to do, because you're doing the things that are focused on people. And then as coaches, all of our education, in most coach education around the world, it's focused on tennis. It's not focused on people. And so we don't understand them properly. We don't understand when the right times to teach them are, or what might motivate them, or those kind of things.
Yeah, and Mark touched a topic which you insist a lot, Mike, talking about fundamentals. The term of fun, which is another thing, because we mix to understand, to put a lot of fun without to follow the simple rules to learn how the people learn, how the kids learn, and you are insisting a lot of the program. I think this is a question for both of you. You know, I think in many aspects of our sport, there is very old structures. You know, the way they teach, the way we develop the coaches, the way that the federation is working in some cases. What we need in our sport to jump to the next level?
Well, I think from my perspective, it's getting down to, are we building the right environments? Too often it's about what. So we work on three principles of learning. We say if a kid's going to learn, they have to be motivated. They have to want it. You have to give them a why. How many things have we seen in the last few months that people have been throwing on Facebook and all these things? And the coach is going, do this drill, do this. The kids aren't at home doing it because there's no motivation for it. There's no hook. You have to have the kid. It has to be valuable to the kid. Yeah. So they have to be motivated. Then you have to get the environment right. Yeah. So you have to provide the right opportunities, use the right tools in the right space. And then you have to understand the capacity of the child mentally and physically where they're at right now. So, you know, for me, the number one is always motivation. The number one is always, why would a kid want to do this? And I see so many people that are too in love with tennis. They love tennis too much. So they don't see the problems with tennis, or they don't see why somebody else wouldn't be as excited about learning something as they are. You know, that's part of our nature. We love tennis, so we want to sell it, but we forget to go a little bit further in motivating people to want to learn it.
Good point. Very good point. What do you think, Mark? What we need in tennis internationally?
I think Mike brings up a great point there, and I'm fortunate in a way. I deal with a bit of a different segment. Most of the people that come to me are pretty motivated. They're coming because they're looking at a performance enhancement concept or reducing injury. That's really why they come here, whether it's stroke technique, whether it's physical. So my perspective on it is that from the main people that I see is that, you know, they're messed up, basically. They're physically messed up. They're mentally messed up. They have bad technique in many respects because they've had some instruction along the way that has kind of put them in a place where they haven't been able to achieve their maximum potential. And that's the frustrating part, is you see these people at 14, 15, 16 that are got a lot of passion, got a lot of desire, got a lot of time invested into the sport, but they're doing things that are really hurting them. And it would be nice to go in a time machine and go back 5, 6, 7 years and be like, hey, if you just would have learned the fundamentals better, a lot of your issues and the things you're struggling with would be better. So that's probably my biggest thing from the main group of people that I see on a regular basis. Would love to see change is at a younger level, see a much better focus on fundamentals, not only technique. When people say fundamentals, they think about technique a lot of the time, but mental fundamentals, how to compete, how to enjoy, how to understand what you're doing out there. Also on the physical side, making sure you don't have major physical limitations that don't show up at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They usually show up at 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah. That's when the injuries happen. So if we could kind of restructure it going forward where more people are getting better education at a younger age, I think we would see more players that stay in the sport longer as well.
It's a very good point. But then talking about, because I want to ask you another thing, but you allowed me to ask about participation, because we discuss and we talk a lot with Mike, and it's for you, Mark, and then same for Mike. Let's Mike respond first. Why participation is suffering around the world? Because if you see mature countries, the tennis is decreasing the quantity of people playing tennis, which is we are truly lovers of our sports. No, even you are working, Mark, with different sport too. No, but you are coming from tennis. From tennis, you go to the other sports. You are all American too, which is a very good point for talking about university tennis. But the thing is, why some countries like the Canadians, Australia is increasing the quantity with a pretty good development program, some countries like China, like Japan are increasing the number of people. Some countries from east of Europe, Mike, you are working with Serbia, Croatia, some of the, but the other, normal or typical traditional countries like France, England, even some South American, United States are decreasing the number. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I obviously it's a little different in different places. So there's different cultures in different places. And for me, then what's happened in the mature markets is we've lost sight of what's valuable to people. So if you look at where the industry's gone, it's moved towards lessons. But we used to, when I first started coaching, I'm 52. So when I first started coaching at 16, 36 years ago, I used to turn up at the tennis club with my basketballs and I'd teach the lessons, and the club provided everything else. The club provided a great social space. The club provided great competitions. The club did everything else within the, they gave chances for people to practice. And then the mature markets have gone lessons, but they've lost the other stuff that's valuable. Most people don't pick up a tennis racket to become a superstar. They have fundamental human needs. They want to make friends.
Yep.
They want to be around people that, they can have fun with. They don't want to be super judged. It's like the rise of computer games is because computer games only celebrate your successes. They don't judge your failures. And we've got into this point where we've professionalized everything to the degree that most coaches out there are looking for a player or looking for the person, this person could be really good, and not really realizing, we have to build a jungle, and the jungle has to be valuable. It has to be like, there's not, so we're selling lessons. We're not selling, with evolution, we focus on making sure that every club delivers great competition, great social, great practice, great lessons, and manages the parents. And it's when you make all those 5 things interact together, so that it's not about doing lessons over here and competitions over here. It's about saying, when I do a competition, did my lessons leading to that competition get the kids ready? Is there a great social space in that competition? Do the parents know what it's all about, and are they looked after in that competition? Did we do practice and mental skills leading to that competition? So it's always about creating an environment. And I think a lot of the mature markets, because they put pressure on the coaches, because they've stopped doing a lot of things, and like in a lot of commercial clubs, that's where the money comes from. What happens is people start to decide, well, I take lessons, but where's it going? It's like learning a language you're never going to speak.
Yeah. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think very similar. I mean, I think the biggest challenge in mature markets is you've got a lot of competition for people's time, a lot of other sports, a lot of other interests. Where does tennis sit in that ecosystem of options? And historically, people learn because typically their parents played, and that was how they got introduced to a sport normally, because it was local. It was they either had a club or courts close to them, and or their parents played. One of those 2 options. So you have to, as a sport, address the parents even more so than addressing the kids. And I think some places have lost that. They address the kids directly, and kids usually aren't making decisions at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. Parents are making the decisions. So there has to be potentially, and I see it again, I don't see the entire world. I see certain pockets. So there's certain parts that I see that are a bit misguided. Working in other sports and working in industry as well, working for kind of Fortune 50 companies, you understand the marketing lens they put on things and how they address, addressable markets. And tennis hasn't done a great job of that, honestly, across the markets I've seen. They haven't addressed the decision makers as well as they should. And that's typically the parents when we're talking about juniors and getting them in. And they also haven't addressed the adult recreational player, which is the current parent or the future parent, which is another market that, hasn't been really focused on very well in most markets. So I think there's some opportunities. That's the way to look at it. Not so much what are the problems, but more so you've got these huge opportunities. When venture capital firms look to invest money, they're looking at total addressable markets, and they're looking at who's going to influence those markets, and they want to get in those companies. And I think tennis needs to look with that lens of how do we influence better and how do we get into the markets that will make the biggest bang for your buck. And the good thing is, right now especially, tennis and golf are the two best social distancing sports available. So if you're not able over the next 2 years to build a tennis market in your local community, you're never going to build a tennis market, I don't think. I think the next 2 years are huge opportunities for clubs, for pros, for local communities to overdo whatever they were thinking of doing. They need to really use this time as an opportunity, because a lot of other sports are going to be a bit more restricted. Soccer is going to be more challenged. Basketball is going to be more challenged. Any sport that requires human-to-human contact is going to be a little bit more challenged from some markets. So right now, I think is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, more informative and in development phases, because you have to take care a lot. We are you took a very important point. We are in our institute. We are doing because I truly believe that if you compare the ATP on all the tournaments, the marketing process and the marketing approach of the ITP or the big tournaments, if you compare, and Mike is working every day on that, if you compare the level of the market, the clubs is so far away. So if you compare what happened in tennis, how the tennis tournament, they are making the approach to sell the tournament, and in the same way to sell our product, which is the tennis or the tennis participant, which is coming to the clubs, the difference between that level of marketing is a huge gap. I think we have to not only increase the level of the participation in terms of new programs, of the motivation, like Mike say, also the approach, how to develop the development programs, the marketing plans, the communication stuff, how we train the people. It's like Mike make a very good remark about the needs, understand how the human being, and it's like you say, Mark, we have a big opportunity these next 2 years because we are one-to-one sport. No, let's ask Mike, talking about competition, because you always make in your presentation, international presentations, you make a very good remark about the importance of the competition, but probably competition in terms of the old model of teaching tennis was not on the same level of the tennis lesson. It's like a tennis lesson is much important rather than of the competition. Probably now it's increasing, but what do you think about it?
Well, it's not about whether it's important or not. I think we just put a lot more effort into lessons. Coaches made lessons more fun than they made competition. So the kids were actually having a better time taking a lesson than they were competing. And I think, our program, we focus a lot on behaviors. So we focus on, is the kid respectful? Do they work hard? Do they try new things? And do they deal with adversity? And when we talk about competition, I think we haven't educated the parents well enough to understand what the value of it is, what the process is, and also then we haven't looked at making sure the competition has all my needs in a package again. It's like if my competition is me turning up and playing on a court and there's no social, I don't make any friends, I don't talk to anybody, I don't learn anything, so then I go back to my club and it wasn't a great experience. But if I've been primed in a way that I know, okay, I'm going to this competition to find out what I need to practice next, and the competition in itself helps me connect with people, make more friends, and certain things that I do get recognized within that competition. It's not that competition's bad. Competition's part of every day. We do it every day. But what it is we've stripped it. We've taken all the good stuff that we used to have when we were juniors away from the competitions. It's now just focused on the results, and that's fine with high performance stuff. But if it's all focused on the results and I'm not making progress, I can't see how it links to everything else I'm doing. It becomes too stressful an environment. And again, it goes back to, okay, most of us as tennis coaches, we're competitive people. We like the battle. We like to be on there fighting. We like it when our opponent's tough. A lot of kids have to learn that. A lot of kids have to learn that that's what it's about, and we're not priming them enough in getting them ready for competition.
And talking, re-asking that about how you involve the parents, because parents have to understand that the competition is part of the teaching process too. What do you think about which kind of actions or parents the parents can be involved in the process to understand more the game?
Well, I think you have to ask the right questions to parents. Like, you have to ask, and you also have to tell them what to focus on. So if you inform them about those behaviors, now when they watch the match, they can go, okay, is my kid being respectful? Are they working hard? Did they try something new when it wasn't working? And when it got tough, did they deal with that very well? But most parents are never told anything. So they go and watch a match and it's like, did my kid win? Did my kid lose? And even then you have to prime them and say, okay, would you prefer your kid to win 6-love against a nobody, or lose 6-4 and 4 but play the best tennis of their life, or win 7-6, 7-6 and play the worst tennis of their life? What would you prefer? And there's no right or wrong answer, but it starts to get the parents to think about, my kid played the best match ever and lost. Maybe that was valuable. Or my kid came off the court and said, Mum, I need to practice my backhand. Maybe that was valuable. It's priming parents in the right way to look for the right things, because most of the time we don't tell them what to look for. And so they just go to the easiest thing. What's the result?
Probably in the mature markets, the parents lose, probably the coaches lose that impulse, to create a new image of tennis. It's like they are using the old-fashioned way, that's it. And no, because we know that we are in the business to connect people, It's like in some mature countries, that connection is not working, no? What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, and I think. Oh, sorry, Mark. Go on, Mark.
No, go ahead. I think it was to you.
No, I was going to say, you are right, because there are some very success stories in immature markets. Like we run a program in Norway, and in Norway we have 500 kids in Oslo turn up they used to before COVID, turn up every month to play a tournament, because we could create a tournament when nobody told us this is how the tournament should be. They didn't know, they didn't have an idea, so they were prepared to listen. Whereas in a lot of places here in the US, for example, there's quite a lot of people that will say, no, we don't do it like that. We've always done it this way. And so when you have a more mature market, sometimes it's harder for them to change as well.
Yeah, right. Mark, you did a lot of sports science stuff, no? But I think most of the coaches in Latin America, you have books, but there is a couple of materials which are very important. Of course, many are there, but in terms of the footwork, probably footwork is on the past. It's not in the same level of a teaching process, And you did a lot of stuff about footwork specifically in terms of sports science, to analyze the different steps, the different way to do it, and then how to understand the footwork, because this is a kinesthetic sport. You touch with the hand and you touch with the foot, and that's why hand and foot have to be together. No, what do you?
Yeah, no, I mean footwork is just as complex or just as simple as hitting a forehand or a backhand, depending on how you approach it. So the higher levels you go, the more specific your technique needs to be with your footwork. And, there's a lot of specifics around footwork. It's just as complicated as hitting a serve or a forehand or a backhand to get it at the highest level. At the starting points, it's not that complicated. Get in position as best you can with what you have right now and hit the ball. That's as simple as you can make tennis. And then as you get better, you've got to start getting specific. Your outside leg needs to get behind the ball. You need to load effectively. When you hit a ball, you need to land and cross over with the right joint angles at the knee, at the ankle, at the hip, all that. So you can take it as simple as load and explode, get in position and hit. Whatever the simplest cue you can use is one segment. The other segment, we can break down one movement for a 2-day course, which we've done. We've actually got people together and talk through the most common tennis movements, about 34 of them, and all the different movements you'll see on a tennis court at a high level. And what's good and bad about those is, one, to be a great coach, you better understand the complexity of it. But to explain it to a 10-year-old or a 14-year-old, you better simplify that in 10 words or less. So, understanding takes years, explaining takes seconds. And it's a very interesting dynamic. Some people forget that. Just because you know a lot doesn't mean you should say a lot. And I think that's an important part of footwork, just like every other stroke. But the biggest thing is to be good at tennis at the higher levels now, you better know how to decelerate effectively in and out of your corners. And then you better know how to be as efficient as possible getting from one place to another on court. And you see that at the highest levels. The top few players in the world are the best movers normally. I mean, it's correlated very highly.
Yeah, but if you compare what happened, in terms of the quantity of hours we are putting to teach the hand, I mean, if you compare the quantity of hours you are putting of the movement is not in the right way. It's like from the beginning. Well, let's talk about the coaches' education, because both of you are working like us in coaches' education. I think it's a key aspect to put in place. We used to talk with Mike. Human being is a concept, communication is a concept, but in terms of improve the quality of the technique and improve the quality of your level of tennis, footwork have to be from the beginning.
Yeah, I think we did a project about a year and a half ago now. I was doing some coaching ed with some high-level pro coaches, some of the best coaches in the world, about 30 really, really high-level coaches that have coached Grand Slam champions across the board. And we were going through footwork. And you're going through a couple different, videos of pro player movement, and everyone's using different terms. This is a crossover step, or this is a float step, or this is a mogul step, or this is a double hop, or this is a triple hop, or this is a load and explode step, and they're all describing the same thing. And that was a light bulb off to me, because I'm like, if the best coaches in the world use completely different language to explain the same thing, we've got a problem in the sport.
Yeah.
And we do have a problem. So the International Tennis Performance Association got a group of coaches together, analyzed pro matches for a year, and said, okay, what are the most common steps used, and tried to simplify it. And it started off with about 120 movements, and we're like, that's way too many. And it basically came down to about 30 or so that are used in every match. And that's available. If people want to go, it's a free thing there. It just goes through about 30 or so movements that are seen in every tennis match. And it names them consistently, and it shows you what they are. So at least hopefully people can use the same language when they're talking. And the big purpose, the reason it came about also was that a lot of strength coaches, physical trainers, things like that have asked to improve a player's movement, they don't know what movement is for tennis. They know what it is for soccer maybe, or whatever sport they came from, but they don't understand what a runaround forehand looks like, or what a movement, a slice backhand as you're approaching to the net, what that footwork needs to be. So this helped a lot. And now a lot of clubs are using it because it's helping them use the same language.
Talking in the same way, Mike, because having games, having different skills for the kids, you can improve the footwork too. It's like the coach have to be.
Yeah. I mean, basically, if a kid, Mark said it in the previous comment. If a kid can't get on balance, if a kid doesn't understand how to use even their feet properly, like one of the things that a lot of coaches tell kids to do is, the really little ones, is to be on their toes all the time. But the problem is the kid doesn't transition from being on their toes to putting their heel on the ground so that they bend their knee, and it's quite interesting when you show coaches just, what part of the foot will create what shape with the leg. If you put your heel down or you slide on the inside of your foot, that's how your leg position is going to, that's how your knee's going to be. If you put your toe down and then you put your heel down, that's how your knee's going to be. And it's quite interesting when you go through those basic fundamentals with coaches. And I always tell them, I walked around in this body for about 40 years before I realized how it worked. It's like, you walk around it every day and you're not thinking about, well, if I put my heel down, now my knee will bend. If I put my toe down, now my knee goes straight. Oh, maybe I'm off balance then. So, getting down to, combining what Mark said about, deceleration's the big thing with little kids. teaching them to be able to move and slow down, because of course their body proportions still have a head that's slightly out of proportion. Getting them to slow down and stop so that they can execute is one of the most pivotal things you can do.
Yeah, you're right, mate. How is working right now? Evolve 9 in your program and evolution, what you are doing, which are the future, which are your vision right now?
How is it? Well, obviously the world changed about 8 weeks ago, and we have to follow the Kovacs model a little bit, take a lot more coach education online very quickly. So that's been a big part of what we've spent the last few weeks doing. We are looking a lot at how we can create more value around a lesson, so that as a profession we tend to go, you come this minute and as soon as the hour's over it's finished. We're looking at, well, what if that hour is like the center, and then what are all the things that you might get from that hour? You might now go home and get some physical exercises you've got to do at home, or do some at-home activities, because obviously we've done things around there. But more than anything, we've been trying to help support our clubs so that they're in the best position to move forwards when they come out of the lockdown situation. And understanding, because we're very people focused, understanding what people's expectations might be. We have kind of 3 groups of people coming out of this. We have the people that don't want anything to change. They just want to get back on the court and play. Mm-hmm. We have the people that don't want to leave their house because they're too scared of the virus and they're not happy yet. And we have the people that are in the middle who say, well, yeah, we want to come and play again, but we want you to change the program like this and that. And a lot of the work we've been doing is about predicting those things, listening to the customer, talking to the parents, asking them, what do they want to see? What do they not want to see? And that's been really interesting, because it's not what we expected.
No, the world is changing. For sure, the world will be totally different, no? But Mark, with your institute, the Key Institute, what you are doing, which is the vision, you are working with many sports, what you are doing now?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like everything, I mean, we had sort of pivoted to a bit more online education to reach a wider audience probably about 1.5 years ago. And so we had programs in place which has been good. We've got this tennis surf specialist certification, which has been very popular. It's a 14-day program. It's a cohort group, so it's sort of trying to recreate an in-person experience online. So people will have some self-study. There'll be some live Q&As and discussions, some presentations, some things like that. So some of the stuff we did at our institute used to be a 2-day course, and we moved that online, and that's done really well. We've got one actually starting up on Saturday. It's a 14-day program. So if people are listening and they're interested, go to the institute website and you'll learn more. We've also got our academy site, which is basically our depository of education. It's everything. It's so searchable from any topic on tennis that we've done over the last decade. So video, audio, blogs, and you can search it by different topics. So that's a good resource available. And then the International Tennis Performance Association, which has been around for nearly 10 years now, that's much more focused on the physical trainer, the athletic trainer, the physical therapist, the tennis coach that does a bit of that work at their club. And we have 3 levels of education there. So, it's really all focused around similar topics of education, trying to provide as much quality sports science, data-driven info as we can. And again, it's, as everyone said, we're not sure exactly how we're going to come out of this in 3 months, 6 months time, but I'm pretty confident in the work that I do. I'm on a couple of these virus task forces. So I'm seeing the daily data from all these really world experts in virology and the different things. And I feel pretty good about how things are going to look in about 1 year time, 1.5 years. But we have to get to that point. So a lot of what's happening over the next 6 to 9 months is going to be very different to what we did last year or the year before.
Well, very good. As you know, in our project, in the Segal Institute, we have a project for all the Latin America and other countries, which is Tennis Stars. And we strongly believe in alliance and, of course, evolution, and the Kovacs Institute will be involved with us in all the projects that we're going to do. But also, I want to ask you different topics right now because my main concern is to create a new wave of leaders, running like with the entrepreneur mentality. And I want to ask you, to both of you, is what is success first, and which was the process to arrive to your success? Because most of the time it takes a lot of time, a lot of study, hard work. But let's start with the Mike. Mike, what is success for you? And then what? Is it more a personal?
I'm British, so we're very different about the way we look at these things. We never think we're successful because we're pretty self-deprecating in that way. So for me, it's like I guess the most successful things are the network of people that I work with. And to know that you have a group of people that want to work with you and want to bounce things off of you, and so it's not like anything I guess there's a level of the stuff that I've done, but my most enjoyable things, what keeps me motivated, is working with the people that I get to work with. Evolution's got like an amazing network of about 60 clubs all over the world who, we bounce off of everything off of each other. So, today we're on a call with 40 of them, and everyone's asking questions and talking and communicating. So, I can pick up my WhatsApp group and I can see a whole lot of messages where coaches from New Zealand are talking to coaches in Florida, and I go, yeah, that's kind of success. People that believe enough in what you're doing, want to keep it moving forwards. But I think the key is to stay open to as many things as you can. I think some people go charging through the jungle looking for the magic forest, and when they do that, they miss the sight of all the trees around them. It's like it's looking at everything as you go and picking up stuff as you go, so I don't think it's a destination, it's a mindset. It's like, it's not, oh, I'm successful. It's like, I want to carry on learning. I want to keep finding new things. I'm motivated, I'm interested, and that's the environment you create around you.
Very good. Mark, you are coming.
Yeah,
Mike is coming from United Kingdom. You are coming from Australia.
Yeah,
you did a lot of things too.
The only Australian thing he's got left is his accent, I think.
No, I think the biggest thing is it's all relative. There's success, like Mike said, is really a process. At the end of your life, you may look back and say, hey, that was a pretty good life. But as you're going through it, it's about, okay, how can you get a little bit better? How can you provide good quality information to folks and be valuable in what you're doing? And I think that's been the biggest thing. There hasn't been a master plan process of do this, then that, step-by-step plan that, I think, some people are always looking for. No one that I know that have been super successful had this master 20-year plan and it all worked the way they had planned it out. It's just do what you are good at, what you like, where you can provide value, and hope that, people see that as important. If they don't, then you may be a bit misguided in what you think your value is. Because if people aren't seeing it, then it probably means that even though it's important to you, there may not be a big enough market for that, or you're not explaining it effectively to get the point across. So I think that's really, really important. I always refer back to this because I asked Ivan Lendl a few years ago. I said, you basically changed the game with your forehand. Your forehand changed tennis. And how did you develop that? And he goes, I don't really know. He goes, at 13, I was working on my forehand. And then by the time I got to 22 or 23, I had a big forehand. And I don't know how I got from 13 to 22, but it happened every day. And that was a really interesting insight as to how you created change and you created development. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's a process of just doing good things on a regular basis. And usually good things will happen to you.
Yeah, it's a very good point, both of you, because you have to probably lower your expectation, work in a day-a-day process, no? And it's like on the real world. Because that's why, because leaders have to create, they create impact, but the thing is how we impulse, inspire new generations of coaches, the new Mark Kovacs, the new Mike Barrell, which probably they have 20, 25 years right now, listen to our conversation. And I think the concept of mentoring in tennis is a huge opportunity, because in terms of coach educations or in terms of clubs, Mike, there is not too many mentoring process. It's like everyone wants to discover the truth. It's no, we have to change that.
Yeah. And if you said, you said that when you put this out as tennis leaders, I'm kind of like, really? I'm a bit like embarrassed to be put in that category. Because I don't think of myself as that. I just think, every day we get up and do what this thing is, and then maybe some people are interested, and maybe we have a good time and we have a good conversation. And I think that's what mentoring's about as well. Mentoring's about wanting other people to be successful, and that doesn't always mean wanting other people to listen to you. It means wanting to help people. That I love the definition of the coach. The coach is a person that takes another person from one place to another, like the stage coach. It doesn't talk about tennis. It doesn't talk about skills. It just says, you're just helping a person along the way on their journey. And especially in the space I work on, because sometimes I sit there and listen to Mark and I go, yeah, stories about Ivan Lendl and all the people that he's worked with at that end of the game. And I bumped into a coach a few years ago at the Australian Open who I used to teach, and he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, so good to see you, and what are you doing? And I'm working with this player and this player at the tournament. Who are you here working with? I was like, I work with 7-year-olds. Yeah. I've always worked with 7-year-olds. Yeah. So for me, I always say the only person that tells you if you did a good job is the person you see when you look in the mirror. And so for me, I'm in that space anyway. I'm not famous. My brothers don't even know what I do, for example. It's like I just try and do my job as best I can, help other people along the way. And I think we need to do a lot more of that, because I think that's missing. But I also think you need to get to a certain point in your career where you don't feel desperate anymore. You don't feel you need to prove yourself. You just have that mentality of your job as a coach, and that mentality of a coach is to help others.
In that way, let me ask you my point of view. The people put you like a leader. You are a leader because people put you like a leader. No, it's not you feel a leader. Someone can feel a leader. But
you become a leader because people lift you up. You don't become a leader because you climb on top of other people. It's and I think a lot of people misunderstand that.
Yeah, that's right.
And a leader leads from within, not from the front.
Yeah, totally agree. But we have to create a leader development mentality, because it's like you say, when you transform the other people and you move to a better place, and you square meter around you, and you can improve the others, and then the society improves step by step, probably you're going to be a leader for sure. But let's there is some question from some.
Did Mark get to answer that one? I'm quite interested in Mark's response to that.
Yeah, Mark, are you ready for that?
Yeah, say the question again, because I was listening to Mike and he had some really good explanations. I wasn't sure what the question was because he said it so well.
No, yeah, very good. Let's have some question from the people, because we have almost 50 minutes talking with us, like a coffee chat, which is very good. Thank you for that. Tom Van Doren is asking, can you name top 3 suggestions to push more to push the parents to understand the game? Three recommendations. Mike, you want to start, because you did a lot of things with parents. 3 recommendations to create a positive environment for parents.
Yeah, first of all, number 1 would be understand how difficult it is to be a parent. It's a really difficult job.
Yeah.
So, and most parents don't know what they're doing. They're just making up as they go along. They're just trying to do their best. So first of all, understanding. Second one would be help them to understand what to focus on. And then the third one would, or actually the second one is probably create realistic expectations. Sport should be a thing where people become better people. You know, sport originated as a way of training warriors for battle. It's even before the Olympics, long before that. Sport was about getting people to connect, work together, learn skills. Sport wasn't supposed to be the end product. Sport became the end product down the line. But, you know, sport is supposed to be about teaching skills. So if the parents' expectations are that their kid is going to learn skills that are going to help them in their life, then if they become a superstar tennis player, they will need those skills. But if they become a businessman or anything else, they will also need those skills. So it's like, you know, understand the parents, help them with their expectations, and then tell them what to focus on.
Very good. Thanks. Mark, for you, Francisco from Mexico is asking, could you mention 3 disciplines that could accelerate the process of learning of the capabilities from young tennis players? There is some other activities which could help to improve.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of options there. I mean, if you're talking about other sports that could help facilitate tennis players, you want to pick environments that are going to transfer very well. So soccer is a great one, of course, for foot skills, for endurance, for agility, for movement. You know, there's other environments like basketball, which is actually really good. Similar kind of court movements that you would see on a tennis court and a basketball court. There's the reactive ability. You have to react to an opponent, play defense, all that. You know, so there's some sport components that transfer really well. So at a young age, you want to play a lot of those type of sports that transfer really well. You know, that's one big one. The other is trying to problem solve and understand how to logically think through scenarios and strategy. You know, chess is a historical game that's been very prevalent in many tennis players' upbringings. Chess is pretty slow these days, unfortunately. Many junior players have trouble sitting down and playing chess for an hour. So there's a lot of video games now that can somewhat get into that environment. But honestly, you know, if you can help your players understand those environments and get them closer to that, it's going to help them in the long run. The challenge is nothing in an environment encourages kids to sit for an hour and basically think. Even schooling doesn't do that anymore. So the challenge is, how do you expect a 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old to play a 3-hour tennis match? It's very difficult to ask a player, your entire life is built around 20, 30, 40, 50-second snapshots of information, and then say, but now I want you to focus pretty much entirely on competing and playing a tennis match for 3 hours. We're just not training him the right way. And Mike can speak to that as well, that there's training for tennis to learn a skill, which is skill development. Training to compete is a very different discussion. And very few players train players to truly compete in a way that is going to make them successful. And they shouldn't necessarily be the same discussion. Majority, I would say 95% of tennis players that hit tennis balls have never and will never be trained to compete. They'll be trained to play and to potentially play in competitive environments, but they're not truly trained to compete like a professional player is trained to compete. And don't expect them to be. I think it's an unrealistic expectation.
And that's why we love the word warrior, because with the word warrior, if you look in the dictionary, it says someone who has been trained to fight. And that's why I kind of like that idea of, it's not a warrior is not born to fight, a warrior is trained to fight. And you can train kids to do that. You can train all players to do that. You can do that really well, and we don't do it enough. And then people don't deal with the competitive experience in the right ways, and they struggle with what tennis is.
Right. And in terms of the vision of the image of the sport, if you look what happened on the terms of the marketing, high performance side is a huge impact. Participation side is not on the same level, which is the same level of the process. In terms of participation, you can generate volume of people playing tennis is much more important rather than the high performance, which is less than 1% of the cake. But in terms of the image of the vision for the big organizations, you know, high performance concept is everyone wants to be Federer, or everyone wants to be Nadal. it's like all the benefits of the quality of the value of our sport have to be more promoted, no, in terms of what you are saying.
I love what Pete Sampras said. He said something like, if only people knew how hard and long I had to train to make it look this easy.
Yeah,
you know, they look at the top players. It looks like they're looking at the top of the mountain. Yeah. They didn't see all the stuff they had to do on the way.
And the guys say, "Yeah, this is a very easy game." I know. But this is another question for you, Mike, from Juan from Costa Rica. He's asking, is this the same competition and same games can be done for adults?
Yeah. In fact, most of the competitions we already run for adults would be really good for kids. Like most of the competitions you run in your club, you know, if you run a competition in the afternoon for your members at your club, it would be like social, and there would be some funny things involved and some way of making it so that it wasn't just about the best players. And then we don't do that when we do kids. And yet the kids would enjoy exactly the same stuff most of the time. So it's kind of like the other way around. We already do it for adults. Most clubs do. They run mixers, they run ways to play these things. But then every time they run a tournament for the kids, it's really serious.
Very, very good. It's another question for Mark. Miguel from Argentina is asking about your 8-step process to develop the serve. How it's working, if you can mention something about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the 8-step model was something I did with Todd Allenbecker, who many people know, great physical therapist, head of medical services for the ATP as well. And it was about 10 years ago. Both of us had worked in baseball a bit, and we were like, baseball's done a really good job of breaking down the pitch and the throw in baseball, and they've developed a much better way of teaching it. And tennis hadn't really done that. There'd been a lot of discussion about the serve, of course, but a lot of it was opinion. And we were like, let's just simplify it and make it to ensure that the fundamentals that based on research, and this was all research based originally, was covered. And that was where that eight-stage model came from. We didn't really create anything. It was just, what did baseball do? What did they do well? And let's impose that on tennis using the research that we had from tennis. And Bruce Elliott, who's done a lot of good research in biomechanics, a lot of his information was there. Dwayne Knudsen, some stuff from Richard Schomburn. There was some stuff from a lot of different people that have done research in tennis over many years. So that was really where the model came from. But then since then, we're like, okay, now let's use that to help simplify how we teach the serve, and then how we make players better. And that's been really helpful for a lot of coaches. And that's something that, is very, very useful when you're trying to just use it, because there's a checklist that can go along with it, making sure the players hit certain metrics or benchmarks to make sure they're doing it correctly. And if they're not, these are the most common fixes for those issues.
Very good. Taking a parenthesis, next Friday, I'm going to have our live chat with the old Richard Schomburg.
Oh, I tell him I say hello. I haven't seen him for a long, long time. Hope he's doing well.
Yeah, he did a new book, which is talking about how brain is working, how the function of brain, and how the brain is learning. And we got, unfortunately, it's only in German right now, but we're going to talk because we did a lot of stuff about the brain too. And then that's why next Friday I say hello for you to and say the old one.
Hi. I mean, every presentation I do on the serve, I have this slide. It's on, standing on the shoulders of giants, and I list about 50 people that have mentored me and I've got my information from, because no one's had an original thought. It's all a combination of what you've heard, who you've been mentored by, and now just based on new information, you put all these pieces together and try to simplify as best you can.
Very good. Talking this, Mike, who was your mentor? If you have someone mentor when you start to think about it, some guys are.
I really didn't. When I look back, I had loads of different people. Like my first tennis coach used to only say like 1 or 2 sentences in a lesson. That was all. And I learned keep it simple from what he said. I learned a hell of a lot from the kids I teach. I learned a hell of a lot from my daughter, who's now 19. Just watching her grow up and watching asking myself, you know, I always say I was a parent with a question mark above my head. As I'm going along, I'm going, why is she doing that? And why does she think like that? Why does she behave like that? And then I'd go away and research. There's lots. I mean, I guess from a big perspective, I guess Anne Pankhurst was involved in my coach's kind of formulating a lot of my coach education stuff, and that made me think certain things. I've got the creativity stuff from Dennis Vandermeer a bit from times, you know, there's a lot of people now that I've worked for, Butch Staples, people like that, that when I was a young coach, 18, 19, 20, I sat there, you know, and watched every presentation they did and learned from them. But I couldn't say it was like one person. I think it's like lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we have almost 1 hour. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna speak in Spanish, you know, to close, and then I'm gonna say some words for you in English. Okay, amigos, hemos tenido una conversación de 1 hora con preguntas y respuestas con dos grandes líderes del tenis internacional, tanto en desarrollo de escuelas como en ciencias. Hay mucha riqueza en la información que han tenido. Creo que es una oportunidad. Lo vamos a traducir con subtítulos al español para que lo tengan, ¿sí? Para que puedan tener esta charla con la riqueza que tienen, porque se habló de muchos programas del futuro del tenis. Y muchas gracias a todos por estar. I want to say thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mike, to be with us in this hour live chat, you know, for all Latin America. We're going to translate and subtitles all the information, which was incredible for all the coaches. I want to say, following the Japanese culture, in the Japanese culture, it's say when you are, you know, your brain, your heart, your commitment, your compromise to develop the others and develop your profession, they used to say you have the ikigai. When you have the ikigai, is when you are committed yourself and all your work. I want to say to you, you have the ikigai in yourself. Okay, thank you very much. A big hug from my heart. Okay, let's have a chat soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Take care, Mark.
Take care, Mike. See ya.
All right, bye.
Thanks, Mike.